welcome to World of Business, your weekly update into trending news and latest developments on the stock markets. It's also on this show we herald unsung but thriving business entrepreneurs. My name is Tafara Bendaguta. Now, recently, the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority announced the latest trust compliance measures through Public Notice 19 of 2026 and Public Notice 29 of 2025, requiring trusts and trustees to register, declare income, and meet tax obligations. Now, we're going to discuss this and more in the second segment and the third segment, but right now we're going to give you the exchange rates as they are of today. The Zimbabwe gold to the United States dollar interbank rate was at 25.77 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at 34.90 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the euro interbank rate was at 30.24 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the South African rand interbank rate was at 0.63 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Botswana pula interbank rate was at 1.83 ZiG. We also give you the commodity prices as they are on the global markets. Gold per ounce traded at $4,720 after it went up by 0.71 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $87.53 after it went up by 2.26 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $664.75 after it went up by 1.78 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $2,118 after it went down by 0.57 percentage points. And that's it for the first segment. Do stay tuned. We got more to unpack only on World of Business exclusive. Welcome back to the second segment of World of Business, where we want to examine the latest trust compliance measures announced by the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority through Public Notice 19 of 2026 and Public Notice 29 of 2025, requiring trusts and trustees to register, declare income, and meet tax obligations. Now, to guide us through this discussion, we are joined in the studio by tax partner and corporate tax expert Simbarashe Hamudi, who will help us unpack how trusts operate, as well as their legal and tax obligations, and why compliance is now more critical than ever. Mr. Hamudi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Now we're going to just jump straight into it. How are trusts established, and are they different types of trusts in Zimbabwe?
Oh, okay. So in Zimbabwe, trusts are established through the use of a notarial deed or a will.
Okay.
This can be done with your lawyers. If you get in touch with your lawyers, they can establish one for you. And we have got mainly two types of trusts. One which is a living trust that can be done if someone is still alive, to then ensure that you protect your wealth after you die. And the other one is a testamentary trust that can be done maybe after one is gone. And this can be done through the use of your will.
Oh, okay. And at what point is a trust regarded as a person or subject to tax, and what determines its tax status?
So if you register a trustee today, according to the Public Notice number 19 of 2026, ZIMRA is saying that within 30 days, every trustee should be registered. Then to become a person liable to tax, these are the issues that we are looking at when one is doing activities that generate income. So with some trustees, they've put their properties in those trusts, and they've done some investments that are within the trusts. And if they are generating income, the trust is supposed to be registered for income tax. And then it will be subject for taxes, and your income tax will be something around 25%. And if they are involved in property and it is being rented out, that will be subject to VAT if they meet the threshold of 25,000 per annum.
All right. Now, at what tax compliance requirements are trusts expected to meet, and which tax types are commonly applicable to trusts?
The requirements is after you register the trust with the deed office, you then have 30 days to register it with ZIMRA. Then the most common types of taxes that trustees should be registered under. Number one is income tax. With most of the trusts, it's income tax, because most of these trusts are generating income. And if you're generating income, you need to be registered for your income tax and pay your income taxes, which is 25%. I think we talked about that. Then the second one is value-added tax. And that's 15% if you are meeting the threshold of 25,000 in terms of income generation per annum. Then if the trust now has got employees, then they need to register for employment tax. And if the trust went on to trade with other players in the market, there is an issue around your withholding taxes. So, and the other part is capital gains tax. I think we'll probably discuss it further, but capital gains tax is another tax area that is common.
Now, as a trivial question, you mentioned on 25%.
Yes.
Is that a viable figure, or is it a bit exorbitant? Because if you're looking at SMEs, that's a bit of a small, that's a huge chunk of the money. Say I make $100, $25 is being taken, I'm left with $75. That's a lot. Now, is it justifiable, this 25%? I'm just curious.
I think that it is justifiable. If you look if at any given time the country thinks that it is not justifiable, we have a very listening minister. During the COVID-19, it was reduced to 24%. Because of what was happening in the country. And after COVID was done, then through the Finance Act, the minister then returned it back to 25%. I think during that time, it was in line with National Development Strategy 1. Then right now, after a number of consultations that were done, and it was seen fit to maintain it at 25% so that we can achieve all the goals that we need to achieve under NDS 2. And
so, in other words, you're saying to get to the 25, there are consultations that were done.
100%.
It's safe to say no one and no place was left behind.
No one.
All right.
Yes, sure.
All right, moving forward, are transfers of assets into family trusts subject to capital gain taxes? And what should families or business owners understand before making such transfers?
That is a very important question. In most instances, when so many families are planning to have a trust or to just register one, it's one thing that is very important to consider, that the transfer of assets or your properties that you acquired before or having this trust will be subjected to capital gains tax. So if you had your houses, your buildings, and any other properties, now you want to transfer that into the trust, it will be subjected to your capital gains tax, which can be 20% of the deemed selling price or 5% of the gain after looking at all the costs that you incurred in building those properties.
Oh, so when you're looking at the costs, they need receipts, obviously.
Definitely.
That's not my receipts.
No, there is the need for supporting documents. If we allow anyone to claim expenses, if ZIMRA allows anyone to claim expenses without taking into account the supporting documentation, everyone will be in a loss position, and ZIMRA might not be able to then achieve the target that was set by the Minister of Finance when he presented his budget, which is around over 9 billion.
For ZIMRA?
For ZIMRA.
For this year alone?
For this year alone. It's around over 9 billion. And this is in line with everything that is being done by the government to achieve, or everything that is needed to achieve towards the Vision 2030.
All right. Now, I'm curious, when does a trust become liable to pay tax on the income it generates, and how is that income generally treated for tax purposes?
Within 30 days from the date that you become a trader. So if you have got your own trust and there was maybe only one property that you were using for residential purposes, that is not subjected to tax, because you are just using it for your residential purpose. If you buy your second property and you start to let it out and it's owned by the trust, from that date, you have 30 days to register at the ZIMRA.
Oh, okay. So you're given at least a grace period, 30 days, to register and get your affairs in order.
Sure.
All right. Now, what are the consequences and costs of failing to comply with trust-related tax requirements and reporting obligations? I'm going to tax evasion, Simba.
So there are consequences. There are penalties and interest that are set. So failure to register, you will be subject to a number of penalties, which is basically $30 per day, up to a maximum of 91 days. So if you were supposed to have registered and you didn't, and you were supposed to submit returns, income tax returns, VAT returns, employment tax returns, those returns also have penalties, which is around $30 as well, up to a maximum of 91 days for each return.
I'm curious, do they follow up on these things, or a person has to come up on their own? I come with my paperwork, or they have a list of companies that they then start following up on to say ninga asata tax yake, ninga asata dai. So how does that operate?
So if you are registered with ZIMRA, they request for your email and your contact details, and each and every month they send you an email that your return is due on the 10th, on the 15th, on the 25th, depending on the return, and they send you reminders. If it's past the due date, they continuously send you those reminders. And for those that are not registered, they do the public notice number 19, like that one. They also use platforms like ZBC, radio stations, and all that to do the taxpayer education.
Now, if people don't comply, how will they know? That's another thing.
So you are saying that if you don't comply, how
with tax?
Yes.
How will ZIMRA know? How will the authorities know?
Oh, okay. ZIMRA and the government of Zimbabwe have done a lot of work, and that should be applauded in terms of integrating systems. So right now, the deeds office have started computerizing the title deeds and these trustees. So the deeds office will be connected with the ZIMRA system. Your banks are connected with the ZIMRA system.
Yes, obviously, yes.
The registrar of companies is now connected with the ZIMRA system. So if you go today, you register a company that is within the government systems, it reports to ZIMRA immediately.
Or the system, okay.
The system tells ZIMRA that these two guys have registered a company, and you should expect them in the next 30 days. If they don't come, you already submitted your email, your address, and everything
Contact
to the
number.
registrar's office, to the deeds office, and everything ZIMRA will have all the information. And if you look at what the Minister of Finance presented towards 2030, is by the time that we get to 2030, everything will be integrated, that it's seamless. You go to the registrar of companies, you will be able to do all the processes.
Without having to go from one office, one address to another, to another.
Yes.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Now, after the break, we're going to continue our discussions with practical insights for businesses and families. We'll be right back after this. Don't go nowhere. This is World of Business, exclusive to ZBC. Welcome back to the final segment of World of Business, and on this segment we focus on practical guidance, common mistakes and emerging trends around the use of trusts in business and family wealth planning. Now, I'm still joined by Mr. Hamudi. Now, sir, what are the most common mistakes trustees make when handling tax and compliance matters?
So the most common mistakes is lawyers have advised a lot of people and educate that trusts are tax efficient. And other men in the streets thinks that if I do put my property in the trusts, I'm not supposed to pay taxes at all.
Yes.
So that's what people think. That's a misconception that is there. So it does not take away the requirement to pay your taxes if you put your investment in a trust and you continue investing through a trust.
Emphasis for those in the back, it does not what?
Take away the responsibility for any person in this country to pay your taxes if you put your investment in a trust.
All right.
Yes,
please,
sure.
Please go ahead.
So there are a lot of things that we are expecting and a lot of work that we are expecting the government to do. And the only way for the government to do that is through us paying taxes from the investment that we are doing.
That's actually true. That's
and we can safely say held our government accountable if we are paying our taxes. And if you look at the work that has been done in this country for the past 5 years or so, you would see that our taxes are being put to good use.
That's indeed true.
So the advice that we can give anyone today is, if you put your things into a trust, let's comply with what ZIMRA is saying under public notice number 19, and let's pay our taxes and help each other to build this country towards 2030.
That's quite interesting. And now, how can businesses and families use trusts responsibly while remaining fully compliant with tax regulation?
I do agree with the argument that trusts will help our families, will help our businesses, and will protect us against anything that can happen if probably the founders are gone.
Yes.
It's very important that it's a good thing to put everything under a trust. But at the same time, let's all comply with the laws of the country on issues around payment of taxes. So let's put our things in a trust, let's protect our families, but that does not take away the issue to comply
with tax
laws.
All right. And what records, governance structures, and documentation should every trust maintain for effective compliance and transparency? This one is important.
Oh, so the most important thing is the trustee deed, the document.
Yes.
That's number one, which is important. The information of the founders. That's other thing that is important, and the information of the beneficiaries. And the other clauses that are then important in that trust is the beneficiaries entitled to this income at what point of their life.
Okay.
Yes. So when you are going to ZIMRA to do the registration, they need the information of the founders, the beneficiaries. In most instances, it is your IDs, your address, so proof of residence, and your national ID.
Documentation,
and, yes,
personal documentation
of the founders, the beneficiaries, and the trust deed. And once the process starts to make sure that this is computerized, let's ensure that it's also computerized. Okay.
And also, what practical advice would you give now to the entrepreneurs, professionals, or families considering setting up a trust today?
I would advise them. I would still advise them to do it. Public notice number 19 is not saying something new. It's something that we already know, that even if you put your properties or investments in a trust, you are still liable to pay your taxes. Do it to register your properties in a trust, but at the same time, ensure that you comply with the payment of taxes. Don't be found wanting by the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. Let's all contribute towards meeting the ZIMRA target and achieve what we want to achieve as a country.
Now, Mr. Hamudi, if my properties are registered under a trust but being used by beneficiaries and trustees, do I still pay tax?
I think after public notice number 19 of 2025, which is saying that all the trustees, all the trusts needs to be registered with this ZIMRA. That is one of the questions that have been in the market. And everyone is asking, why do I need to register the trusts if I'm not generating income?
Yes.
Because if you look at it, we've got families that formed these trusts, and the properties that they have, they might have 5, 6, but they are being used by the children, they are being used by the relatives. And do they still need to pay taxes is the question that is there. And everyone thinks that if I go to ZIMRA today and do the registration, the next thing that ZIMRA wants from them is the taxes. But ZIMRA is saying that they want to have everyone with a trust to be registered, but that does not mean that you need to pay taxes after registration. So if the properties are being used by the beneficiaries, by the family members, as per the clauses in the trust, there might not be issues around taxes. You might not need to pay taxes. So what the people need to do, or different families, corporates, and everyone, is to ensure that your trust covers you on that party.
Okay.
Because all those trustees will specifically specify who is supposed to use that property. And if the beneficiaries that are listed in the trust are using the properties, and you then inform ZIMRA that there is no need for you to pay income tax because you are not generating income.
Just a quick follow-up. What about if an individual starts to let out the properties for rental income? How do we handle that?
So yes, that's another good question. We have such scenarios where the founder would have said that I'm giving this property to a beneficiary who might be in the form of a son or a daughter. But because this son is trying also to make a living, they then start to lease that property.
Yes.
So ZIMRA is aware of that, and that information has get to the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. That, of course, the founder is thinking that the property is being used for just residential, but maybe it's a very big property in the Harare North, and it's now being used for other use. So even if you then inform ZIMRA that the properties are being used for residential, you should expect the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority to call the beneficiaries for interviews. And if they found that that individual is now getting rent out of it, then the trustee will be taxed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, in another direction, recently, the Registrar of Companies requires companies and trusts to do re-registration. Now, what is the purpose of this move? And does it also require re-registration, an extra amount of money on top, or is just general re-registration?
So I think you asked it earlier on where you said that how is ZIMRA going to find out that there are companies that have been registered? And how is Zimbabwe Revenue Authority going to find out that there are a number of trusts that have been registered with the deeds office? And as we have been arguing in different forums, that if we are saying that we are moving towards the Vision 2030, like what the president always say, we should have a country where if I go to the registrar of companies and do the registration, everything should be done with one office.
Indeed.
Yes. So last year, the government says started this process with the registrar of companies, which was supposed to end in April. When we get to April, so many companies were not yet registered, especially the SMEs. And those that then lobby for the SMEs talked to the government through different ministries and says, give us some more time to re-register almost everyone, including the SMEs, because if you don't re-register, it was going to be automatically deregistered from the registrar of companies, Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, and banks. So we were given an extension of 2 years up to 2028 to re-register these companies. So up to 2028, almost everything would have been re-registered.
The process is still ongoing?
The process is still ongoing.
Oh, okay.
So we have 2 years with the re-registration of companies. Then when you look at it from the deeds office, they're starting the process now. So if your mom has got a property in Kwadzana, Harare, in Machemhlophe, in Bulawayo, the government is saying we need to re-register that deed. So you need to take your deeds, your title deeds, and go with it to the deeds office, and everything will be computerized. And
then re-register.
Then re-register. Why are we doing that? So that the government knows almost everyone with their property.
Yes, that's
true. We have got family issues that happens at some point, disputes and all that. So that's the re-registration process. But at the end of it, the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority is also highly involved in these matters because this information will assist them to collect taxes. And if you look at all the deadlines and the due dates to do this, everything is around before 2030. So that by the time that we get to 2030,
Vision 2030 will be realized.
Achieved and realized.
All right. Now, thank you, Simba, for sharing such an insightful conversation with us on trust structures, taxation, and compliance. Now, as Zimbabwe's financial and regulatory environment continues to evolve, understanding these obligations becomes increasingly important for both businesses and families. Now, that's all for today for our episode of World of Business. From myself, Tafara Bendaguta, and the crew behind the scenes, it's back to business.
ZBC News, the real African voice.